Hi, my name's James Kello. I'm a London beer sommelier. Welcome to the Bermondsey Beer Mile. So here we are on Druid Street at one end of the Bermondsey Beer Mile. We're going to start with Southwark Brewery. Okay, here we are in Southwark Brewery. I'm about to speak with the owner, Peter.
I'm Peter Jackson. I'm the original founder and managing director of Southwark Brewing Company. It is the final part of my career in the brewing industry. For 35 years I've worked at some big breweries, so it's quite nice to have something of my own at the end of that. But we've been here 5 years now, and we are a small to medium sized micro, I would say. We're not one of the big boys.
Okay, so one of the things I love about Southwark Brewery every time I come down here on a tour is the fact that they are a modern and also a traditional brewery at the same time. So what I mean by that is they're making the modern American pale ales, IPAs, these sort of modern craft styles, but they're also making some of the tastiest cask beer in London as well. Peter's going to tell us about one of his best-selling beer, their LPA, London Pale Ale.
Well, LPA was the first beer we brewed. And I unashamedly say it was a beer brewed for me. It's easy drinking, light, citrusy. It's made with citra hops, which is my favourite. 4% ABV, so it's quite sessionable.
Yeah.
Sessionable is my favourite word in the brewing industry. It means you can drink lots of it. I can tell you over those 5 years I have. But it's easy drinking, it's a modern style, traditional cask beer, and it's also bottle conditioned in the bottle as well.
Fantastic. Southwark Brewery, we're about to speak with the owner, Peter. Maybe just pan around. Yeah. Good. Here we are, stop number 2. This is the Barrel Project, which is the tap room of the London Beer Factory. So yeah, the London Beer Factory is a brewery started by two brothers, Ed and Sim Cotton. This is their tap room, as I say, the Barrel Project. And as well as being where you can drink their beer, this is also where their barrel aging program takes place. Barrel aging, mixed, spontaneous and wild fermented beers, aged beers, dark beers as well. Made away to be drunk later on, and I hope we're going to be able to speak to someone in here about their barrel aging program and just take a little bit around, probably for me, the smartest and okay. Yeah, what would be really interesting is just to, yeah. So I'm here with Braden Liu. Braden heads up the London Beer Factory's Barrel Project. Braden, do you want to give a little idea of what that means, what you're doing here?
Cool, so essentially we make core range from our normal brewery, and then here is where we make the more interesting, more long-term kind of projects. We take beer that we brew just down the road. We ferment it on site in some stainless steel fermenters down this way. When that's finished fermenting, so typically 10 days or so, we move it to all of these lovely oak barrels that you can see all around. Wrap them back onto the stacks, and then they age for about 12 to 18 months typically. We taste them once a month, decide which ones we think are going to go nicely together, pull them back down into a finished product, and then we package it naturally carbonated in bottle and keg.
Right. And it's mainly sold through here, is it, through the Barrel Project?
Mostly, we make a really small amount of beer. The quality is quite high, and it's quite a complex product that we make, but because we only make a very tiny amount of it, most of it goes through here. Yeah. The rest of it goes through our online store, which is kind of. But typically, we only do maybe 100 litres in bottles, and then some kegs.
Right. Okay, thanks very much.
Possible to run something like this size as a financial business that is running in grain. Like Wildfire, my previous brewery, grow beer to make a lot of money because it's not.
You're probably in the wrong game, aren't you? Yeah,
for sure. So you can run it financially, but it's definitely your setup, your delays. Like when you put your first beer in the barrel to when you bottle your first beer is probably in excess of a year and a half to 2 years. So it's a long-term setup where you're not seeing any kind of cash flow for the first year, which makes things difficult.
So what you're saying is, if someone's coming in here and buying a beer, you know, in the barrel project, in the tap room, or if they're buying a beer from the supermarket, from this brewery, essentially you're a patron of the arts at that point.
Absolutely.
You're helping to fund the creation of the barrel project up here. Yeah.
You are supporting. Well, I mean, myself personally and my love of beer. And we treat each of these barrels as like has its own story, has its own like evolution, I guess, over time. Sometimes they go through phases of not tasting great and then tasting good, and it's kind of, you get to know them and then you get to make decisions on whether they'll stick around for the long term. So you're supporting a passion project that is very slow and very difficult to maintain and really big. Like you factor in the first year probably 15 to 20% losses of the beer that we make here. It's a huge loss and a huge potential for failure. It's definitely a little bit more interesting than foundry work. Moving from essentially lab cultured mixed firm saisons into purely wild ales with wild yeast. It's happening very shortly. The beers are tasting really good, so that's been my pet project, and I'm really kind of looking forward to that point. It's come full circle because obviously it is such a long waiting period between start the project and actually seeing some kind of.
And with these these wild and these mixed fermentation beers, are you always trying to create something new? Do you ever try and create classics that you've enjoyed elsewhere? So I don't know, say Flanders Red or Gers. Are you ever trying to make recreate something you found delicious elsewhere, or is it always something that's brand new to you?
We dabble in a little bit of both. So we use age hops. We use a similar grist to a lot of Gers, lambic-based breweries. We create a darker base beer that is similar flavour-wise and aromatically to Flanders Red and stuff like that. And then we branch into using New World hops. We do a lot of dry hops, mixed firm saisons. You've got light acid and then poppy, punchy kind of like aroma and flavour. We do a bread IPA, which is pretty New World, and that's kind of a fun little experiment that we play on. So we dabble in and out of new and old, and we do have our two base work streams are a blonde base and a dark base, and then we play with other varieties as we go along.
I've got one.
Like Hawks, obviously similar, but they've got a few extra.
Which is and so obviously this is the brewery and this is where you're fermenting and where you're blending. Do you ever come down on Saturday to the tap room to see how your beers are getting enjoyed? Listening in on a couple of conversations maybe, and try and read people's faces as they take their first sip of the beer you made?
Absolutely. I love a Friday afternoon eavesdrop. So as soon as I finish, everything gets put away, we mop the floor, we clean up. I'll perch at the bar and just kind of listen in.
Sit on a few conversations.
See how the bartenders are going, see what they're serving, see what they recommend, and then see how it's received from our beers. It's good to get some honest feedback.
Well, good luck on Saturday.
Thanks, mate.
Going past the Porsche garage here, lovely old classics. Just thought I'd stop here outside Hiver Beers. This is their HQ. They don't actually brew here, they brew off-site, but Hiver specialise in beers made with honey. Not sure if anyone's about today, we'll just take a little look inside. Hello. Cool. So I'm here with Hannah Rose, founder of Hiver Brewery. Hannah, you've got quite obviously an unusual operation in terms of the BERKMONDSEYbeerMileV. Beers made primarily with honey as the ingredient, the key ingredient. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. So I think when I'd worked in brewing for years, and when the idea for Hiver came along was really after going beekeeping, doing an urban beekeeping course, and originally feeling like, oh wow, this is just amazing. It's the first time I felt as passionate about something as when I kind of first started to do beer tastings, thinking, wow, there's a beer out there for everybody. And in finding out a bit more about bees and realising, one, how cool they are, which I think most people agree with. It was really getting to grips with honey as an ingredient, and starting to think about honey as a raw sugar that has its own taste and flavour properties, and just how interesting that would be to play with from a fermentation and a brewing perspective. So I definitely, I guess, being a beer person, I had people always say, oh, what's the difference between honey beer and mead?
Yeah.
Mead is very much a honey wine, so maybe honey water yeast. Some breweries might not use water even. Whereas honey beer for me is that excitement of, rather than any additional sugar content, how could you find a real balance between your local raw honey, which is, we work with urban beekeepers and we work with beekeepers in Yorkshire, it's all raw, independent. How could we get the balance of those flavours with our cereals and our hops? And if you were fermenting with this raw natural sugar, where would the flavour profile go?
So that was going to be my question. So the honey that you brew with, you said some of it is urban, so London, local here, and some is from elsewhere in the country. And how do you decide which honeys you're going to use? Or my understanding with honey is that the blossoms, the flowers that the bees pollinate, that's what really affects the flavour. So do you use a variety, I guess?
Yeah, so I guess way back, when I started doing the recipe development, originally it was just urban London honey that I was using for the trial brews, and that was really small scale, just a bit of fun, just to learn. And urban London honey is quite citrusy. The bees have been feeding on lime and acacia trees that the Victorians planted all over the city in all urban areas of the UK. So that massively impacts and affects the flavour of the honey, and that's where when you start to talk to independent beekeepers, they start to talk about varietals of honey based on the forage type. That might be a flower, a tree, a herb. So there's a whole other conversation there that we can have there. But really it was just the urban honey that I was trial brewing with originally, and it had these lovely citrusy notes when you tasted it. And I
It works so well in beer, of course.
Definitely, yeah. But it was quite weak on the nose, so it was just finding, starting to learn which honey varietals maybe complemented one another, and using different honeys in the way that some brewers might use different hops. So
Yorkshire,
an aroma hop and a flavour hop, as crude as that is to describe it in that way.
Sure.
That was sort of the way that it started to develop with the fermenting different types of honey in the recipe.
Great, wow. So here's another little stop on the route I thought I'd point out. You've got Hawk Cidery here. So traditionally cideries were, rural in the countryside where the apples were grown. This is one of the first examples, I guess, of an urban cidery here in London. Cider made on site, pressed and made on site. How do they know them all? Yeah. And they. Here at the Marcus of Wellington. This is a place where usually we'll meet our guests on the tours. Really nice pub. It is a chain pub. It's part of the Enterprise Inns group, but they've done a really great job of kind of being inclusive and stocking beers from all the local breweries, particularly Anspach and Hop opposite. The train's going over. So they're really looking forward to opening tomorrow as well, and it's a real sort of hub for the area. A lot of the brewers will come here and drink after hours and that kind of stuff as well, so yeah, good spot. So yeah, it's still on Drury Street. We're just going past the Anspach and Hobday. Was the brewery, now the tap room, not open at the moment, but I'm not sure if they're opening this weekend. But yeah, definitely one of the kind of the original craft breweries on the BERKMONDSEY Beer Mile here on Drury Street.
Start again, Josh.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, James. Go.
So yeah, we're just out here outside the bottle shop, as was unfortunately closed down. It's craft beer. Beer is not a high margin business, and that's why your support for your local breweries and the breweries down here on the BERKMONDSEY Beer Mile is so important. My numbers are here as well, aren't they? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in this little bit on Enid Street here, you've got some of the best known breweries on the mile. So, more here, Bristol Brewery, you've got Cloudwater, Manchester, we've opened up a tap room here. You've got Brew by Numbers, who I think was the second brewery on the mile after the Colonel. From London, Sweden. This is a craft beer tap room featuring Swedish beers. So yeah, let's have a little look.
Just get the bar. Footage.
So yeah, we're just here with Simon, the taproom manager for Brew by Numbers, down here on Enid Street. It's not kind of fully set up, just a quick quiz, you know, just wander through. Thanks.
So obviously all this beer is going out for sale. Yeah, we're basically using this as our warehouse space at the moment. And today and tomorrow we're going to be cleaning it all up and turning it up into a bar.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all hands on deck.
So how's it been, like mail order and stuff, has that been going well for you?
Yeah, really well. Definitely saw the drop in taproom sales, obviously. Got translated into web shop.
People need to get their beer somewhere, don't they? So they're going to get it. So yeah, you've been able to do that.
Yeah, no, it's been really busy. The guys have worked.
Brew by Numbers Brewery, this is Tom here. We're going to take a little wander down.
So just preparing some cherries for a sour beer we're making, and these are cherries that are grown in bed. We're separating the stones from them to infuse them, so we're using the whole cherry, skin, stones and fruit.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So yeah, the brew house.
Yeah.
So we've been here since 2013, May. Before that we're brewing a basement on Southernbridge Road. And yeah, we've just this is our original site. We've shoehorned in as many tanks as we can. So yeah, we can produce sort of 42,000 litres a month at the moment. And then yeah, we have on site 75 and in Beckham as well. So yeah, this is where it all happens.
Right. So I'm here with Reese, owner of Bianca Road Brewery. Reese, do you want to tell us a little bit about, you know, how long you've been here, you know, your setup and about the brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started Bianca Road 4 years ago in Peckham.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of sites since then, but we moved to this site on Enid Street last year. So we've been here a year now. We specialise in sort of West Coast American style IPAs and pales, but then we do a lot of specials that sort of branch outside of that to the East Coast and experimenting with different yeast strains and different hop varieties and styles around that core range.
Okay. And I see you just kind of starting to open up again after the
Yeah.
lockdown. How's it going? You got, you know, takeaways and bottle shops. You're going to be open on Saturday as well?
We'll be open on Saturday. We sort of
Great tap room you've got in here. If you guys ever do get the chance to come down in person, but they've actually got kind of 2 arches. It's a really lovely space. So yeah, you've got. I mean, I'd say out of most of the breweries down here, you've probably got, you know, one of the better tap rooms for, you know, the social
really
distancing,
lucky,
drinking safely. Yeah.
We've got a bit of space, which is great. But we'll see how we go.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just at the end of Enid Street here, and this is called Spa Road. Here you can see on the sign here. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But Spa Road, the Spa Road terminus, essentially this is the first elevated railway line in the world. This whole area, before the railways came in, kind of like not exactly a slum, but there was loads of business, loads of activities going on, and to try and come through with the railway through here would have just been too much hard work. So essentially they realised the best thing to do was lift it up, elevate it. So as I say, first elevated railway in the world, so a little bit of history here. And the nice thing, my favourite things about Bermondsey actually is the you know, you don't have to look too hard, and the history just jumps out at you all over the place. And yeah, the railway itself and the railways in general, a large part of their development was actually to do with the transportation of beer around the country. So there's a certain, you know, circularity to that, and the fact that all of the arches that the breweries are in exist, trains just going by now, exist because of the elevated railways. And now these are the renaissance of small brewery brewing and craft brewing in this country taking place within those arches. Yeah, it's just a certain sort of pleasing circularity to that. Here we are at Spa Terminus, Spa Rosehill, and yeah, we've got the Colonel Brewery here. Colonel Brewery, the original craft brewery on the Bermondsey Beer Mile. This is, I think, their third or maybe fourth location within the area, and yeah, very much still the gold standard in London craft beer. Let's go and have a little look. Oh yeah, look.
It is.
Here we have one of the few remaining Wimpeys in the UK. I think they've actually reopened themselves a new Wimpy here.
Go.
So here we are, final third of the Bermondsey Beer Mile, Almond Road. Probably the least well-known little section of it, but it's got some of the best breweries on the mile. So let's have a little look down here as well. First brewery you get along here is Affinity, which is one of my favourite breweries. Let's have a look inside.
Go.
So yeah, I'm just got our heads into Affinity Brewery. This is one of the founders, Steve. In the bar, you read to us?
Yeah, so we've been going for just over 3 years now. We started up in Tottenham, moved down to Bermondsey at the end of 2017.
Yeah.
End of 2017, and yeah, we've been producing some nice sort of pale ales, IPAs, with a focus on sort of Belgian stuff as well. Some saisons, lime zest, coriander saison goes down really well. Just super drinkable, easy stuff that goes down well in the sun.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Well, so here we are at Partisan Brewing, one of the original breweries on the Bermondsey Beer Mile. Let's have a look. Hello.
On Saturdays.
So yeah, here we are at Partisan Brewery. I'm just chatting with Tom, who's the head brewer here.
Yeah, so we do predominantly bottles.
Yeah.
A lot of our trade pre-COVID was restaurants. So kind of throughout this we've actually started moving over to can slightly.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You got your own canning line?
Not yet. So
Yeah.
we're working. We were working with Brewman on this just during lockdown, and now that's kind of finished. We're going to get them the can in.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes very well.
So,
actually,
but yeah, hopefully, I think we'll run a canning line and a bottling line in tandem because, like I said, a big part of our trade is restaurants.
Yeah.
Sort of restaurants don't like cans.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, no, exactly, and you know, getting them open even.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's still just finding their feet again, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's in town? What are you most excited about at the moment?
We are currently, I'll grab a bottle of it. We've got a new beer called Dee Dee. So we used to have a cat called Adina.
Yeah.
And her nickname was Dee Dee, but obviously we went here for 6 weeks, so we rehomed it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she...
In memoriam, Dee Dee.
Yeah, so she lived here. She was a working cat,
Yeah.
so she was really good. And but yeah, obviously it wasn't fair on her to leave her here by herself for that period of time. So yeah, we've done so Dee Dee is a DDH double dry hop pale. So this is the first sort of, we did a initial release as part of the brew gooder thing that didn't actually end up happening in the end because of the lockdown coming. But yeah, so this is kind of the second iteration of it, and and then we've got a third iteration in tank and we're going into cans. So the third one along, I think with each batch is going to get better. We're learning a lot.
Well, hopefully we can get that in a box and out to our customers as well. So yeah, thank you. So do you mind if we just have a quick look down into the brewery as well?
Yeah, that's fine.
So how many fermenters have you got?
We've got 7 now, so we did have 6 and we just put that one about 6 months ago, put in this other one here.
Yeah.
So 7 of these, they're all kind of max capacity, 3,000 litres, so 30 hec. We brew, depending on the style ABV, I think anywhere between kind of 24 hec and the full 30 hec kind of thing. So,
Just fill us in a little bit about your special kettle as well.
As you can probably see, our hot side kit isn't the most glamorous sort of brew houses out there. But our owner, Andy, I'm pretty sure he made it out of.
I heard he found it in a field.
Yeah, he said stories that it was part of an old nuclear reactor or something like that. But honestly, this thing, like the FVs, you'll have a skin warning. This thing is literally about that big in terms of metal, so it's whatever its purpose was for.
So yeah, come the apocalypse, hide in your kettle.
Yeah.
That's a lovely guy, isn't he?
Oh, he's such a nice guy.
That happens, yeah. I was just, I was doing it.
I hope you've enjoyed your virtual tour at the Bermondsey Beer Mile. We've been to quite a few places. I hope you've enjoyed your beers, of course, as well. Thank you so much for supporting independent British beer, London beer. These guys really need your support. Please keep ordering. If you've enjoyed them, please keep ordering them. Very happy to field any questions and contact me online as well. I'm sure the breweries are as well. We're going to be also coming back, revisiting this tour, revisiting the route, revisiting these breweries as we go along. So yeah, please do, check back in again as well, because we'll be having new iterations with different beers as we go along. But for now, that's me, James Kelly, saying thank you very much for your virtual Bermondsey Beer Tour.